Welcome to Boring Travel and Geography for Sleep. This is the series where we slowly, quietly, and quite thoroughly walk you through everything there is to know, or perhaps not really need to know, about all the countries of the world. Tonight's country is Turkey, a country that is both in Europe and in Asia, both mountainous and coastal, both ancient and modern. But don't worry, this is not going to be exciting. There will be no dramatic music, no thrilling anecdotes, and no bold claims about Turkey being a must-see destination. Instead, we will take a long, uneventful walk through the country's geography, its history, its economy, and all the other things that define a nation, slowly and in detail. Now, in a long episode like this, with so many names, facts, and historical layers, it's entirely possible that some small errors may have slipped through. If you spot anything that's incorrect, unclear, or just seems a bit off, feel free to leave a comment. Especially if you're from Turkey yourself, we'd love to hear your perspective. So make yourself comfortable. Maybe dim the lights. Maybe stretch out. Breathe slowly. And if you do fall asleep during this, that's fine. We won't be offended. Let's begin. Part 1, Country Facts, Turkey in all its measurable glory. Let us begin with the simple things. The things that can be counted, measured, defined. Let's start by talking about Turkey's geography. Turkey is a country located at the intersection of southeastern Europe and Western Asia. Roughly 97% of the land area lies in Asia, specifically on the peninsula known as Anatolia, while the remaining 3% lies in Europe, on a smaller region called East Thrace. The country is bordered by 8 other nations. These are Greece and Bulgaria to the northwest, Georgia to the northeast, Armenia, Azerbaijan, via the Nakhchivan exclave, and Iran to the east, and Iraq and Syria to the south. The country has coastlines along 4 major bodies of water: the Aegean Sea to the west, the Mediterranean Sea to the south, the Sea of Marmara in between, and the Black Sea to the north. Turkey shares its longest land border with Syria, stretching over 900 kilometers. The shortest border is with the small Azerbaijani exclave of Nakhchivan, just under 20 kilometers. Turkey's geographic position has long made it a bridge between continents and cultures. Whether this has been more of a blessing or a burden is something we will not attempt to answer here. Okay, let's go on to talk about Turkey's size and name. The total area of Turkey is approximately 783,562 square kilometers. This makes it the 37th largest country in the world. It is slightly larger than Chile and a little smaller than Pakistan. The country's official name is the Republic of Turkey, or in Turkish, Türkiye Cumhuriyeti. The English name Turkey comes from the medieval Latin Turkia, meaning land of the Turks. The Turkish people themselves call the country Türkiye, a name that better reflects the native language and identity. In recent years, this version has increasingly been adopted in international contexts as well. Turkey's flag is simple and easily recognizable. A red background with a white crescent moon and a 5-pointed star. The red color has historical associations with the Ottoman Empire. The crescent and star are ancient symbols used long before Islam, but they have also become associated with Islamic tradition. The crescent is often interpreted as representing progress, while the star may symbolize the 5 pillars of Islam, although interpretations vary. Language and people. The official language is Turkish. It is a Turkic language, unrelated to Arabic or Persian, though it has absorbed loanwords from both. There are several minority languages spoken in the country as well, including Kurdish, Arabic, Zaza, and Armenian. However, Turkish is the only official language. The population of Turkey is currently estimated at over 85 million people. That makes it the 18th most populous country in the world, just behind Germany and just ahead of Iran. The population is growing, though the rate of growth has slowed in recent years. A majority of the population lives in urban areas. The demonym for people from Turkey is Turkish, or Turk in the singular. While the majority of the population identifies as ethnic Turks, a significant Kurdish minority makes up an estimated 15 to 20% of the population. Other groups include Arabs, Laz, Circassians, and various smaller communities. Capital and government. The capital city of Turkey is Ankara. This often surprises people who assume that Istanbul, being the largest city, is also the capital. But no, it is Ankara. Ankara is located in the central part of the country, in the Anatolian heartland. It has a population of around 5.5 million people, making it the second largest city in Turkey after Istanbul. Turkey is a presidential republic. That means the head of state is also the head of government. As of now, the president of Turkey is Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He has been in power since 2003, first as prime minister and later as president. His leadership has been marked by major political changes, including a shift from a parliamentary to a presidential system in 2018. Economy and development. The currency of Turkey is the Turkish lira, abbreviated as TRY. As of now, $1 is worth quite a few lira. The exact number tends to change frequently due to inflation and currency volatility. Turkey has a mixed economy, with strengths in manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and services. Major exports include automobiles, machinery, textiles, and food products. The gross domestic product, GDP, is estimated at around $1 trillion nominal. That places it roughly 20th in the world, depending on the year and exchange rate. Adjusted for purchasing power, it often ranks a bit higher. The Human Development Index, HDI, for Turkey is classified as high, placing it around 48th in the world. This means the average citizen has decent access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, though there are still gaps and regional inequalities. The average life expectancy in Turkey is around 78 years, which is fairly typical for a middle to high-income country. And what about religion in Turkey? The vast majority of Turkey's population, around 99%, identifies as Muslim. Most are Sunni Muslims, though a significant number belong to the Alevi branch, which has its own practices and traditions. There are also small Christian and Jewish communities, especially in Istanbul and a few other urban areas. These groups are officially recognized and have protected status under Turkish law. Turkey does not have an official state religion. The constitution defines it as a secular republic. However, religion plays a visible role in public life, and the state operates a central religious authority, the Diyanet, which oversees mosques and Friday sermons across the country. Part 2. History, thousands of years gently flattened. When we speak of Turkey's history, we are really speaking about thousands of years. Not decades, not centuries, but millennia. This is, after all, one of the places where settled life began, and then continued, for a long time, with new names, new empires, new religions, new languages, and lots of dates. But don't worry. We'll take it slow. The very old stuff. The area that is now Turkey has been inhabited since the Paleolithic era. That's the Old Stone Age. We're talking about 10,000 years ago, or more. One of the world's earliest known urban settlements was located here. It's called Catalhoyuk, and it dates back to around 7,500 BCE. People lived in mud brick houses. They painted walls. They buried their dead under the floor. They seem to have been fairly organized. Later came the Hatteians and the Hittites. The Hittites formed one of the region's first true empires, sometime around 1600 BCE. They fought the Egyptians. They wrote on clay tablets. They eventually collapsed, as ancient empires tend to do. After that came others, Phrygians, Urartians, Lydians, and Lycians. There were Greeks on the coast. There were Persians from the east. There were Romans who took over most of it, the Roman and Byzantine periods. The western parts of what is now Turkey were absorbed into the Roman Republic, and then the Roman Empire. The city of Byzantium became Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire. This lasted for a long time, roughly 1,000 years. Constantinople became one of the largest and most important cities in the world. It was a center of Christianity. It had impressive walls, palaces, and churches, including the famous Hagia Sophia, which still stands today. The Byzantine Empire held on, even after the Western Roman Empire collapsed. But not forever. The Seljuks and the Ottomans. In the 11th century, Turkish-speaking people from Central Asia, known as the Seljuk Turks, began moving into Anatolia. They defeated the Byzantines at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071. Later, a new power emerged, the Ottoman Empire. It began as a small principality in northwestern Anatolia in the late 1200s. It grew, slowly at first, then faster. In 1453, the Ottomans captured Constantinople. This marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of Constantinople's new life as an Islamic imperial capital. The Ottomans renamed the city Istanbul, though this name was already in informal use. The empire expanded across the Balkans, the Middle East, North Africa, and even parts of Eastern Europe. At its height, it controlled vast territories. The Ottoman Empire lasted over 600 years. It had sultans, viziers, janissaries, palaces, mosques, and bureaucracy, and also wars, revolts, and slow decline. By the 19th century, it was often referred to as the sick man of Europe. It struggled to modernize. It lost land. It faced internal problems. Eventually, it joined the losing side of World War I, the Republic of Turkey. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire was dissolved. Istanbul was occupied by Allied forces. Plans were made to divide Anatolia among foreign powers. But then came a man named Mustafa Kemal, later known as Ataturk. He led the Turkish War of Independence, a conflict between Turkish nationalists and the occupying forces, including Greece, Britain, France, and Italy. In 1923, the Republic of Turkey was formally established. The Ottoman Sultanate was abolished. So was the Caliphate. The capital was moved from Istanbul to Ankara. Ataturk became the first president, and he set about transforming the country. Reforms and transitions. After the founding of the Republic in 1923, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk led a wide-ranging program of reforms aimed at modernizing and secularizing the country. These changes were introduced quickly and touched nearly every part of public life. One of the most visible changes was linguistic. The Arabic script was replaced with the Latin alphabet. This was intended to increase literacy and align Turkey more closely with the West. Religious schools were shut down, and the state took control over education. Secular institutions replaced religious ones, and education became compulsory and standardized. In the legal sphere, European legal codes, particularly from Switzerland, Italy, and Germany, were adopted. These replaced the old system of Islamic law, bringing new definitions of civil and criminal justice. Traditional clothing, such as the fez for men, was officially discouraged. Instead, Western-style dress was promoted as a symbol of national progress. Perhaps most notably, women were granted the right to vote and to be elected, first in municipal elections, and then nationally by 1934. This put Turkey ahead of many European countries in terms of women's political rights. Finally, Islam was removed as the state religion, and the country was declared officially secular. Religious symbols were taken out of government institutions, and state control over religious affairs was centralized under a new body called the Presidency of Religious Affairs. Together, these reforms represented a radical break from the Ottoman past. They were bold, ambitious, and in many cases controversial, but they continue to shape Turkish society to this day. So now we're approaching the later 20th century. After Ataturk's death in 1938, Turkey entered World War II as a neutral country. It did not join the fighting until the final months of the war. In the post-war period, Turkey became a member of NATO and a close ally of the West. It also began transitioning to a multi-party democracy. The following decades included military coups, economic crises, and constitutional changes. Turkey has oscillated between democracy and strong-handed governance. The military has stepped in several times, in 1960, 1971, 1980, and indirectly in 1997, claiming to protect secularism. And what about contemporary Turkey? In the early 2000s, the Justice and Development Party, AKP, came to power. Its leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has been the dominant figure in Turkish politics ever since, first as prime minister and later as president. Under his rule, Turkey has seen economic growth, infrastructure development, and rising international influence, but also concerns about press freedom, judicial independence, and democratic norms. In 2016, there was a failed military coup attempt, followed by mass arrests and a state of emergency. In 2018, Turkey officially shifted to a presidential system, giving the president sweeping powers. Today, Turkey remains a country with a complex political landscape. It is a member of NATO. It has long sought EU membership, though negotiations have stalled. Part 3. What Turkey is like today. Turkey is a country that many people have heard of, but few could easily describe. It is at once rural and urban, modern and traditional, coastal and mountainous. In this part, we will look slowly at what Turkey is like today. Nothing dramatic, just the facts, gently arranged. Turkey's geography is varied, very varied, but let's take it one piece at a time. Most of the country has a Mediterranean climate with hot, dry summers and mild, wet winters. This applies especially to the western and southern coasts, the Aegean and the Mediterranean. Along the Black Sea coast, the climate is milder and wetter. Rain falls year-round. This makes the region green and suitable for growing hazelnuts and tea. The interior of Anatolia, however, is a different story. This central plateau has a continental climate, cold winters, hot summers, and not much rain. Snow is common in winter. So is wind. It is a dry and open region. The southeast is more arid, with semi-desert conditions in some areas. And the eastern highlands, near the border with Armenia and Iran, are mountainous. Here, winters are long and harsh. Temperatures can drop far below freezing. So, the climate depends on where you are. And in Turkey, you can be in many different types of places, without ever crossing the border. Most of Turkey's population lives in cities. The largest by far is Istanbul, with over 15 million people. That is more than the entire population of many European countries. Other major cities include Ankara, the capital, Izmir on the Aegean coast, Bursa, a historic industrial city, and Antalya, a popular destination for sun-seeking tourists. But rural life still exists, especially in eastern and central Anatolia. Many villages are small and scattered. Agriculture is still important. Livestock farming, cereal crops, and fruit cultivation remain a way of life for millions. In short, some people live in giant cities with traffic and subways. Others herd sheep in the mountains. Some do both, depending on the season. Turkey's economy is diverse. People work in many sectors, from farming to finance, from tourism to textiles. Agriculture employs a significant share of the population, especially in the east. Major crops include wheat, barley, cotton, olives, and fruits. Turkey is one of the world's leading producers of hazelnuts, cherries, and figs. Industry is also important. Factories produce cars, electronics, clothes, and household goods. Istanbul and the Marmara region are major industrial hubs. Then there's tourism. Millions of visitors come to Turkey each year for beaches, ruins, mountains, food, or shopping. Tourism brings in foreign currency, supports local economies, and adds a bit of English to the street signs. Finally, there's the growing services sector, including education, healthcare, tech, and logistics. Many people in the cities now work in offices. Some even work remotely, though high-speed internet is not evenly distributed. Turkey is a country with a strong national identity and a wide diversity of cultural expressions. The official narrative emphasizes unity, Turkishness, and the legacy of Ataturk. But beneath that are many layers: Kurdish, Arab, Laz, Armenian, Circassian, Greek, and other influences. Most of the population is Muslim, primarily Sunni, but there are also Alevis, a distinct religious group with their own beliefs and practices. There are small Christian and Jewish minorities, mostly in urban areas. The state is officially secular, but religion plays a visible role in public life. Mosques are everywhere. The call to prayer echoes through cities 5 times a day. Religious holidays are national holidays. Food, music, dance, and hospitality are central to daily life. Tea is served everywhere and often. Meals are shared. Traditions vary by region, from Black Sea polyphonic music to southeastern meze platters. Turkey is not a uniform country. Different regions feel and function quite differently. Geography, culture, politics, language, and even the pace of daily life can vary from one part of the country to another. Istanbul, for instance, is vast and chaotic. A sprawling metropolis of over 15 million people, it blends Ottoman palaces with modern skyscrapers, ancient alleyways with crowded ferries. It is cosmopolitan, noisy, and full of contrast, a city where the past and present share the same street. Along the Aegean coast, life tends to move at a slower pace. This is a region known for its olive groves, whitewashed fishing villages, and a relatively secular atmosphere. Towns like Izmir are known for their liberal attitudes and coastal charm. It is a region where time feels stretchable. The Mediterranean coast is warmer, sunnier, and more touristic. Here you'll find beach resorts, Roman ruins, pine-covered hills, and seasonal crowds. Places like Antalya and Kos draw visitors from all over, especially during the summer months. In central Anatolia, the landscape flattens and the climate grows harsher. This is a more conservative and traditional part of the country, defined by small towns, wheat fields, and mosques that ring out across quiet plains. The capital, Ankara, also lies here, though its atmosphere is more administrative than touristic. Eastern Turkey is more mountainous and rural. Travel can be slower and distances longer. The region is home to many Kurdish communities, along with a distinct sense of identity and heritage. Winters are colder. Roads wind between peaks and valleys. Life feels more remote. The Black Sea region, by contrast, is green and rainy. Its hills are covered in forests and tea plantations. The roads curve endlessly along the coast. Fishing is common. So is tea drinking. The climate is damp and mild, and the scenery is often misty. Finally, there is southeastern Turkey, which is drier and more arid. The landscape here is flatter, browner, and marked by ancient cities like Mardin and Diyarbakir. The cultural influence leans more toward the Middle East, with different languages, spices, and rhythms of life. Each of these regions has its own food, dialects, customs, and political leanings. Together, they form the patchwork that is modern Turkey, varied, layered, and not easily summarized. And now let's look at what people Google about Turkey. When people search for Turkey online, certain questions come up again and again. Some are about travel, like, is Turkey safe to visit? Or, when is the best time to go to Turkey? These questions will be answered later in this episode. Others are more cultural or political, like is Turkey in Europe or Asia? Why did Istanbul change its name? Or is Turkey part of the EU? It is not, but it is a candidate country. Food is another common topic. What is Turkish breakfast? Which we already have answered. Another question is, what's the difference between Turkish tea and coffee? These are important questions, though not covered in detail here. For the record, Turkish breakfast is large and often includes olives, cheese, bread, eggs, tomatoes, and jam. And Turkish coffee is strong, unfiltered, and served in small cups with grounds at the bottom. Finally, there are some more curious searches like, can you drink tap water in Turkey? The answer to that is that in most places it's not recommended. Why are there so many cats in Istanbul? The simple answer to that is that it's because people feed them. Is it safe to wear shorts in Turkey? And the answer to that is yes, especially in cities and tourist areas. There is no shortage of questions about Turkey. Hopefully, this episode will answer a few and create a few more. Part 4. Visiting Turkey, gently and gradually. Maybe you're considering a trip to Turkey. Or maybe you're not. Either way, here's what it's like to visit. No excitement. No bucket lists. Just information. Delivered slowly. How do I get there? If you're coming from Europe, you will likely fly. The main international hub is Istanbul Airport, one of the largest in the world. It has direct flights to and from most major cities. If you are coming from North America, there are also direct flights to Istanbul from places like New York, Toronto, and Chicago. The flight is long. The legroom may be limited. The in-flight meal will probably involve rice. There are also airports in Izmir, Antalya, Ankara, and several smaller cities. Domestic flights are common and usually affordable. Once you arrive in Turkey, there are several ways to get around, depending on your time, budget, and tolerance for unexpected delays. You can take a plane, which is the fastest option for long distances. Domestic flights are frequent, usually affordable, and connect most major cities. You can travel by bus, which is extremely common and, in many cases, surprisingly comfortable. Long-distance buses often have reclining seats, small televisions, and complimentary tea or soft drinks. Some even have attendants. Trains are available, too. They are slower than buses on many routes, but some offer scenic views, especially in the east. There is a growing high-speed rail network between certain cities, but not everywhere. Renting a car is also an option. The roads are generally in good condition, particularly around cities and along major highways. Driving styles, however, can vary, and traffic in places like Istanbul may require patience and strong nerves. And then there's the dolmus, a shared minibus that follows fixed routes but has no fixed schedule. It departs only when full. The word dolmus literally means stuffed, which gives you a fairly accurate idea of what to expect. Walking is also an option, though not across the entire country. Is it safe, and what does it cost? Turkey is generally safe for tourists. Millions visit each year without incident. Still, as with any country, it is wise to take precautions. In large cities, be aware of pickpockets. In rural areas, be aware of stray dogs. In very remote or politically sensitive regions, especially near the borders with Syria and Iraq, travel can be more complicated. It's best to check official travel advice before going. The cost of living is variable. Due to inflation, prices can change quickly. But for visitors from Europe or North America, most things are relatively affordable. Hotels range from cheap guest houses to luxury resorts. Food is generally inexpensive. A full meal can cost the same as a coffee and a sandwich in Northern Europe or Northern America. Public transport is very affordable, and tea is often free. The best time to visit Turkey depends, of course, on where you're going and why. Spring, from April to June, is often considered ideal. The weather is mild and pleasant in most parts of the country. Flowers are in bloom. Days are long. And the crowds are still manageable, especially in popular tourist areas. Autumn, particularly September and October, is another comfortable time to travel. In the south, the temperatures remain warm, but without the intensity of summer heat. The sea is still swimmable, and the evenings are cooler. Summer, from July to August, can be very hot, especially in the interior regions like central Anatolia. Coastal areas along the Mediterranean and Aegean become busy, with both local and foreign tourists filling hotels and beaches. Prices tend to rise, and shade becomes valuable. Winter, from November to March, brings colder weather. The eastern and mountainous parts of the country can be especially harsh, with snow and sub-zero temperatures. But winter also means quieter cities, fewer tourists, and the opening of ski resorts. And for those who dislike insects, it's worth noting that there are far fewer mosquitoes. It's also good to be aware of Ramadan and other religious holidays. These may affect opening hours, especially in smaller towns, and public transport can be more crowded. But they can also offer insight into local customs, traditions, and festive meals, especially in the evenings. If you're wondering where to go in Turkey, there are plenty of options, depending on your interests and how much time you're willing to spend getting from place to place. You might start with Istanbul, the country's largest and most well-known city. It is both ancient and modern, filled with mosques, bazaars, palaces, ferries, and neighborhoods that seem to belong to entirely different centuries. It is busy, it is layered, and it is never quite finished. Further inland lies Cappadocia, famous for its strange rock formations known as fairy chimneys. Here you can stay in cave hotels carved into the soft stone, and, if you wake up early, take a ride in a hot air balloon at sunrise, or simply watch them drift overhead. Then there is Pamukkale, a place where mineral-rich waters have formed white terraces of travertine. Warm springs flow gently over the ledges, and nearby you'll find the ancient ruins of Hierapolis, a Roman spa town. Ephesus is another archaeological highlight. Once a major Roman city, it is now a site of remarkably preserved ruins, including a large amphitheater, ancient streets, and the famous Library of Celsus. If you like old stones, this is one of the finest collections in the region. On the southern coast, you'll find Antalya, a popular seaside city with long beaches and all-inclusive resorts, but also ancient ruins and rugged mountains rising inland. It is both a holiday town and a historic one. Bodrum, further west along the Aegean coast, is known for its nightlife, its marina full of yachts, and its whitewashed houses with blue trim. It is a place where people come to relax, or to be seen relaxing. For something more remote, you might consider Mount Ararat in the Far East. This is the country's highest peak, and, according to some traditions, the resting place of Noah's Arkansas. It is quiet, high, and biblical in tone. Not far away lies Lake Van, the largest lake in Turkey. The water is slightly salty. There are islands with ancient churches, and the scenery is vast and still. Whether you prefer cities, ruins, beaches, lakes, or mountains, there is something to go to. And if you prefer not to go anywhere at all, that's also an option. There's also the Black Sea coast, with winding roads and tea gardens. And the eastern cities like Mardin or Gaziantep, where the food is spicy and the architecture old. If you want adventure, you can hike parts of the Lishan Way or explore the Kakar Mountains. Just bring good shoes. And water. And patience. And now let's get into what's worth seeing in Turkey. If you're the kind of person who enjoys seeing things, historical places, architectural landmarks, or just mildly impressive piles of old stone, then Turkey offers quite a few. One of the most famous is the Hagia Sophia, located in Istanbul. Originally built as a church, it became a mosque, then a museum, and is now a mosque once again. Its massive dome and layered history make it one of the most visited buildings in the country, and perhaps one of the most symbolic. Not far from it is the Blue Mosque, also in Istanbul. Known for its 6 minarets and interior lined with blue tiles, it is still a functioning place of worship. Visitors are welcome outside of prayer times, provided they dress appropriately and remove their shoes. Next to these is the Topkapi Palace, once the official residence of Ottoman sultans. Inside, you'll find courtyards, chambers, and displays of imperial belongings, including weapons, clothing, and a surprisingly detailed spoon collection. For something more chaotic, you can wander through the Grand Bazaar, a vast, covered market with hundreds of shops selling everything from carpets to lanterns to sweets. It's easy to enter. Exiting may take slightly longer. Further afield, you'll find Göbekli Tepe, considered by many to be the oldest known temple site in the world. Over 11,000 years old, it predates writing, farming, and most forms of recorded civilization. The stone pillars are decorated with animal carvings. The purpose is still debated. On the mountainous Black Sea coast is the Sumala Monastery, built into the side of a cliff. It overlooks a forested valley and seems to defy gravity. Getting there involves a winding road and often fog. High in southeastern Anatolia stands Nemrut Dejai, a mountain where a king once built his own tomb, complete with giant stone heads. These statues now sit in silence, weathered, scattered, and best viewed at sunrise, when the light is soft and the crowds are fewer. And beyond these, Roman theaters, Byzantine mosaics, Ottoman bathhouses, and UNESCO World Heritage sites too numerous to list here. If you don't see them all, that's fine. Most people don't. Part 5: Fun Facts. Surprisingly specific and mildly interesting. Turkey is a serious country, with a long history, a large population, and a lot of complexity. But it's also full of small, curious details. The kinds of things that don't usually matter, unless you're trying to win a quiz, or gently impress someone at a dinner party. So here are some fun facts. Not too fun, of course. Just moderately diverting. 1. Santa Claus was Turkish. Yes, really. The historical figure behind Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, was born in the 3rd century in a town called Patara, in what is now southern Turkey. He later became Bishop of Myra, now Demre. He was known for secret gift-giving, which eventually inspired the modern myth of Santa. So if you've ever left out milk and cookies, you have a Turkish bishop to thank. 2. The fez is banned. You might associate the fez, the red brimless felt hat, with Turkey. But wearing one is actually illegal in the country. Why? Because of Ataturk's clothing reforms in the 1920s. He banned the fez as part of a larger effort to westernize Turkish dress. The idea was to break with Ottoman traditions and adopt modern, European-style clothing. To this day, the fez is not commonly worn in Turkey, unless you're in a tourist shop or a costume party. 3. Istanbul has more cats than people want to count. In Istanbul, street cats are a part of the landscape. They are fed, petted, and photographed by locals and visitors alike. Some have names. Some live in mosques, cafes, or libraries. Some appear in documentaries. No one really knows how many cats live in the city. But there are many. Probably more than you'll see in most European capitals combined. They cross the streets. They sit on chairs. They nap in flower pots. They are unofficially citizens of the city. 4. Turks drink more tea than the British. Per capita, Turkey is the #1 tea-drinking country in the world. Tea, or K, is served in small tulip-shaped glasses. It is strong, hot, and rarely served with milk. Sugar is optional. Refills are frequent. It is drunk in homes, shops, offices, barber shops, and gas stations. If you visit someone, even briefly, you will probably be offered tea. Even in the middle of summer. Even if you just drank tea. Even if you say no. 5. They invented the first known flushing toilet. The ancient city of Ephesus, located in modern-day Turkey, had public toilets with running water over 2,000 years ago. The seats were made of stone. Water flowed underneath, and there was often a sponge on a stick instead of toilet paper. Let's not dwell on that. It may not sound luxurious, but it was more advanced than what much of Europe had 1,000 years later. 6. The first human settlement on film was in Turkey. The ruins of Çatalhöyük, a Neolithic site in central Turkey, are considered one of the oldest known urban settlements. It's often called the world's first city, even though it had no streets. People entered homes through holes in the roof. Some houses had paintings. Some had burial chambers beneath the floors. There is no evidence they had podcasts. 7. The evil eye is everywhere. You may notice a blue and white glass bead with a black dot in the center. It's called a nazar boncugu, or evil eye bead. It's meant to protect against envy and bad luck. You'll find it on walls, cars, babies, animals, shops, and keychains. Does it work? Difficult to prove, but it certainly doesn't hurt. 8. Bread is sacred. Bread, ekmek, is not just food in Turkey. It is a deeply respected staple. If bread falls to the ground, many people will pick it up, kiss it, and place it somewhere high, like a wall or a bench. It is considered wasteful, even wrong, to throw bread away. In some neighborhoods, people leave leftover bread in bags hung on fences or trees, for birds or for people in need. 9. Noah's Ark? Probably not, but still. According to some theories, Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey is the final resting place of Noah's Ark. There have been expeditions. There have been photographs. There have been wood samples. There has also been skepticism. Officially, there is no conclusive evidence. But that doesn't stop the stories. Or the tourism. The mountain itself is real. And tall. Over 5,100 meters. That part is not in dispute. 10. Salt comes from a 5-million-year-old lake. Lake Tuz in central Turkey is one of the largest salt lakes in the world. In the summer, the water almost disappears, and a hard, white salt crust covers the surface. You can walk on it, carefully. Much of the country's salt comes from this lake. The salt is old, about 5 million years old, but it still tastes like salt. And then we'll see if Turkey's got any famous people, past and present. Turkey has produced a number of individuals who are known beyond its borders. Some are ancient. Some are modern. Some are still alive. Some are not. Let's begin slowly. One of the most internationally recognized figures is Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, founder of the modern Turkish Republic. Though he died in 1938, his influence continues. His face is on banknotes. His quotes are on school walls. His statues are in nearly every town. In the world of literature, Orhan Pamuk stands out. He is a Nobel Prize-winning novelist known for works like My Name is Red and Snow. His books are translated into many languages. He often writes about memory, melancholy, and Istanbul. In music, Tarkan is often called the Prince of Pop in Turkey. His 1997 song Simarik, also known as the Kiss Kiss song, was an international hit. If you've ever heard the chorus but didn't know who sang it, it was him. In film, Nuri Bilge Ceylan is a prominent director. His movies are long, slow, introspective. One of them, Winter Sleep, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 2014. In sports, Arda Turan is a well-known footballer who played for clubs like Atletico Madrid and FC Barcelona. Others include Hakan Şükür, who scored goals in World Cups, and Nuri Sahin, who played in top European leagues. Some famous people of Turkish origin were born or raised elsewhere. For example, Gigi Hadid, the American supermodel, has a Turkish-Palestinian father. Elif Shafak, a widely read author, writes in both Turkish and English. And Enes Kanter Freedom, a basketball player formerly in the NBA, is of Turkish origin but now lives in the U.S. There are also Turkish-German artists like Fatih Akin, a filmmaker, and Mesut Ozil, a footballer, who have brought Turkish heritage into European public life. So yes, there are many names, some well-known, some lesser known, all connected in one way or another to the country called Turkey. And that concludes our slow journey through Turkey, its borders, its history, its people, its facts. If you're still awake, congratulations. If you're not, we hope it was a restful trip. There are about 200 countries in the world, depending on how you count them and who counts them. And we plan to explore every single one of them, slowly, gently, and perhaps a little too thoroughly. So if you'd like more episodes like this, about places that exist and things you don't really need to know, feel free to like or subscribe. We'll be here, taking our time, talking about the world, one unhurried episode at a time. Good night.